In this video, we're going to discuss how to create buttons within your Foundation for Emails eBlast. So I've gone ahead and navigated to the Foundation for Emails documentation. Once you get in here in the CSS, there's a whole section under components called button. And this has all the documentation that you need to help you get started in creating buttons within your email, as well as the fabulous copy button that allows you to copy some of this basic code. So a general button, if you look at how this is set up, a button will start within a table that has a class of button. You have your standard table components, so table body, table row, table data, and inside that is a nested table. Table body, table row, and then in your table data, you see that you'll have your link where your button goes to, then the text for your button. That's the basics that you probably have already noticed working in Foundations that this gets to be kind of ugly code. It gets to be very nested. Everything is nested within the nests. So, but that's just the general workings of the CSS versions of Foundation for Email. That they do have the SAS version, which is a lot cleaner. But for our videos, we are just going to be using the standard CSS. It has a smaller learning curve. It just has uglier code. So I'm going to go ahead and copy. I don't need the body tag. I don't need all this extra because I'm going to put it into my code, so I don't need in between the body tag. Just starting at this table tag here. I'm going to highlight all of that. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to jump back into my code. And now in my code here within my table head tag, I can go ahead and place that button. Open that up, and I'm going to paste that in. I'm going to hit save. Let's refresh it. And there is my button that I've pasted in. So that is that standard button. Pretty easy. I'm going to go ahead and beautify. There we go. That looks a little bit better. Beautify is another plugin that you can put into Atom that just makes your code look a lot nicer. I recommend having that and running that periodically just to make your code look a little bit better. So what we've got here, let's break down that code a little bit. This is just that standard button, and then it's going to follow the rules of the column that it's in, these column classes. So I have my row. Right in here you can see I have column 2. Underneath that is going to be my button. So remember that HTML reads top down, so column 2 appears above the button. So if I'd like to add any styling to this, I can add some inline styling, or I can add it into the Foundation for Emails.css. We'll go into styling these buttons up a little bit later in this video. So right now you can see this is that standard button just as it appears. Here's my button. It's class of button. There's the link. You can right in here where we've got the pound sign or hashtag, however you would like to call it, that's where your link will go. So if I'd like to link it to, probably need an S here now, HTTPS, and then I can go to www. Whatever your website is. And now that's linking to your site.com. I can change the wording in this button. Link to my site. Save it. There's link to my site. So that's a general basic button within Foundation for Email. So let's see some of the other different out of the box, off the shelf buttons that come pre-built with Foundation for Emails. So this is the default size. There are really 4 other sizes that you can make it: a tiny, a small, a large, or an expanded button. So you have tiny, small, regular, default, which is we have the default right now, large, and then expanded. So let's look at the difference in sizes for those. So where you put in the sizing would be where we call the class of button. So right after the word button, I will hit a space and write the word tiny. And that gives it that contextual class of tiny, or not contextual class, just class of tiny. So you can see that makes that button smaller. That is now a tiny button. I can make it small. Save, refresh here. That's the small. And I can also make it large. and that is the large size. So that looks pretty good. It depends on entirely how big you would like your button to be, but that's an easy way to size those. I can also make it expanded, where the button expands to the width of the column. And there is button expanded. So you see how that goes to the full width of the column. There is some of that 15 pixel padding around the button, so it's not going to totally touch the edges of this. So right now we're on the small size, so a mobile size, it's going to be expanded. And you can see when I pop into this 3-column layout, how it's still expanding to the full size, but just keep in mind how wide your columns are. I still have my margins turned on so you can actually see where the columns start and stop, which is really helpful, I think, when you're learning to code and understanding why things are placing the way they are. Obviously, you would not do that on a real design, so that's the expanded button, so it's fully justified to the width of the column that it is in. I can also add contextual colors to my buttons. So contextual colors can add some level of visual hierarchy. They can add some communication to anybody who's reading this with a screen reader or assistive technology. So it can let them know a primary versus a secondary button. It can also just be used for color communication if you're just wanting to use the colors that these by default come with. So within this button class, I can add those contextual colors. So the first one being button secondary, which will give it a gray color. By default, the default button with nothing put on it is blue. Secondary is gray. The next contextual class would be success, which will be a green color. There's success. Warning, which is an orange color, and then alert. Which is kind of an orangish red. I don't feel like that's quite true red. It could be my screen versus your screen, but a little bit of a reddish orange. So those are the contextual colors that you have. The default or primary, which is blue, secondary, which is green, secondary is gray, success is green, warning, which is orange, and red, which is alert. You can also mix these styles together where I have my button expanded alert. You can add any of those sizing to go with your contextual colors. So if I wanted to make this tiny, I can do that as well. So you can mix and match some of those defaults as they come built in with Foundation for Emails to style up a basic button without too much coding involved. So there are 2 different styles that you can also apply to round the corners of the buttons. Right now the buttons will have a basic square edge to them. I'm going to go ahead and make this a large button so that you can see it a little bit better in this recording. There we go. There's the nice square edges. So I can change the corners to have a radius. And that will round, you can see that just kind of gently rounds the corners on that button, which I think is a nice look. If you don't want the hard edges, it just gives a little softer look overall. You can also do rounded, which will totally round to more of a pill shape on your button. So those are other things that you can add to that button just to give it some real basic styling without having to do, again, too much coding or too much CSS to that. So those are the basic out-of-the-box things that come with Foundation for Emails as far as buttons and their styling. So now I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of custom CSS to your button. So where I like to work is within this. I have a nice clean copy of the Foundation for Emails as it came out of the box. So I have a clean copy of Foundation for Emails.css, which is automatically linked to my index.html document. So I'm going to go ahead and open up this CSS document and edit right within here. So if you go into this, you'll notice this is a really long bit of code. But this is where all of those CSS rules that you may have not been aware of have been kind of popping in. So some of those defaults right out of the box are right in here. And you're welcome when you work in here to start editing that CSS. So I'm going to go ahead and do a Command F and find my button. So I typed in the word button and hit find. If I hit it again, it'll be find next or Command G. See, that gives me a nice little, and so it's taking me to where it's finding the term button within this CSS. It saves me from scrolling 900 lines of code down. So I'm going to be looking for, I've changed my code back to just being the standard blue button. So I'm just going to edit this default button as it stands. So that means I can grab where I see just the plain button. I can start editing some of that CSS. So here's my background color. That is that blue color that pops up. That's the blue color that pops up here. So I'm going to go ahead and change that to, let's just do a basic black. And then this also has a 2-pixel border on it, so I'm going to go ahead and change that to also black. I'm going to go ahead and save that here. I'm going to flip back over to my, there we go. And now I can see that's black. But then I have a hover effect that is blue, so I can go back and change that in here as well when I, for the table hover. So there's my table button hover, visited, active, background color. Let's just change that to a nice gray color. And for this gray, I'm going to choose 808080. Save that. Pop over here. Oh, let me refresh it real quick. And there, I can see that that's hovering to a gray color instead of that blue. So that's a way to change your CSS within this document. It will become email wide because this is going to now apply to all of my default buttons no matter where I put them. It's going to be globally applied because that's in the global CSS styles. I find this, even though digging through here is it can sometimes be a pain because like I've got to go through 68 matches to find my exact button to change it. I find that it's a little more, what's the best way to say it? So it's just a little bit quicker than trying to add an important flag over top. You can also style it if you wanted to in here with this button where you write a style tag and you important flag it so it goes over top of the built-in CSS. I just like to change it within the CSS document so that I know that it's one, globally applied, and two, things are not going to get a little funny with it where I have conflicting styles in some way and one's overriding. So in that way you can change any of your information as you go ahead and build. Just jump into your CSS and start customizing your styling for your email. So that's it for buttons. Thank you for watching, and I will see you on the next one.